The railroad was a cause of Plains being formed as a town. There were three small rural communities in this neighborhood. One was out at Lebanon, where the cemetery is now. One was down near our farm, just directly south of Plains, and one was north of Plains. And they were completely separate, but each one of them had one or two or three stores and maybe a little schoolhouse. And when the railroad came through here, Mr. M.L. Hudson traded with the railroad company, and he gave property to build a depot and that sort of thing. And with the depot here and the traffic coming through, and a kind of a highway that was built between Americus and Preston, Plains was attractive to those three little communities. So basically the merchants in those little communities closed down their operations and moved their stores here to Plains, about I think 1885 or something like that. And so the whole town was developed on the farm that was formerly M.L. Hudson's, where he sold lots, and where the depot, which is still in the center of Plains, formed the attraction for other people to move here. So in a few years after that, Plains had grown to about 200 people, later 300 or 400 people. When I was a child, Plains probably had about 500 people, and now it has about 620 people. So Plains has been growing regularly, you might say for the last 150 years almost, and still has now reached a great size of 630 people, I think, in the last census. Well, Plains was kind of a dormant town. It depended on two things, basically. I think three. One was a railroad that came through. The second was agriculture, farming. And the third was forestry. As a matter of fact, we had 7 sawmills working in Plains when I was a boy. And the main industry around Plains was trees, peanuts, and cotton. We grew corn primarily for human beings to eat and to feed livestock, because very few people then had tractors. So all of the work was done by mules and horses. And of course we raised cattle and hogs and chickens and so forth. So corn was a very important crop. From 1920 to 1940, I would say Plains was pretty well established as a shopping center, primarily on the weekends. During the average day of the week, when I would come to Plains, as a boy, there would be practically nobody on the street. And we would see Plains totally transform on Saturdays, when several thousand people would crowd into Plains. People walking here or coming on wagons or riding on horseback, on the backs of mules. Very few people had automobiles, but they would save up their major shopping to Saturday and come and buy all of their groceries and so forth for the entire week, buy shoes and overalls and so forth, clothing in the stores here, and women would buy the fancy dresses and hats. So Plains was a very good shopping center on Saturday, and kind of a dormant, quiet town on the rest of the week. Well, this is the way Plains looked in 1925, pretty much. And this is my father's store here, J.E. Carter and Company. You can read it better on the great big picture, you know. And this is Mr. M.L. Hudson, that street down there, right here by us is named for him. He was a farmer, and he had a pecan orchard when he divided up in the lots for everybody in Plains. Now has some pecan trees in Plains. This is a picture taken in 1905, and this is a picture taken in 1925. Plains hasn't changed much.
Plains Mercantile Company was where the inn is now, and it had everything, almost everything you could want, you could buy in Plains Mercantile Company. Upstairs was a dress shop. They sold dresses and hats, underwear. Downstairs was fabric, and my mother made my clothes, all of our clothes for the children, boys too. And so we used to buy a lot of cloth. I remember that you could buy a hat for $3. Shoes were $2. It was, things were a lot different back then. The store next door, on the other side of Plains Mercantile Company, was the Oliver McDonald store. And I remember that when I was little, my grandfather came every Saturday. We stood in the road, which was dirt in front of my house, a dirt road, All the roads in Plains were dirt back then. And he would bring us a nickel. He would give each of us a nickel when he came. And we could go in Oliver McDonald's store and buy a huge bag of candy for a nickel. So we always looked forward to that.